Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my house for over 20 years and absolutely love the property. One of the best parts is the beautiful row of tall oak trees lining the back fence between my yard and my neighbor's. I planted those trees myself when I first moved in and have nurtured them over the decades into a gorgeous feature of my outdoor space. The trees provide wonderful shade during the hot summer months, and their leaves create a blaze of color in the fall. The branches extend over the fence, with some reaching across into my neighbor's yard. However, he never seemed to mind. In fact, he complimented the trees and told me he enjoyed the bit of extra shade they provided. That neighbor recently moved away, though, and a new family bought the house. Right from the start, I could tell the new owners were going to be trouble. They seemed to always be scanning my property whenever they were outside, almost like they were looking for things to complain about. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the wife was knocking angrily on my front door. She demanded I cut down all the trees because the branches reached onto their property. I calmly explained the trees had been there for over 20 years and asked if the branches were causing any actual issues. She huffed and said she didn't want anything from my property invading their space. I suggested perhaps just trimming some of the branches on their side, but she refused. She wanted the entire trees gone, or else she would hire someone to chop them down herself. I was stunned by her audacity and utter lack of regard for my beloved trees. Over the next few weeks, she continued harassing me about cutting down the oak trees. Her husband would even stand in his yard glaring at the trees, as if wishing them to spontaneously combust. I did some research and consulted an arborist who confirmed the trees were healthy and that trimming any problematic branches was all that was necessary. Armed with this professional advice, I attempted to have a rational discussion with my neighbors, showing them the arborist's report, but they outright dismissed it, adamantly repeating their demand that I remove the entirety of the trees. By now, I was getting seriously concerned that they might take matters into their own hands if I didn't act. I installed some security cameras to monitor the trees just in case. I also spoke with a lawyer who drafted a letter on my behalf advising my neighbors they had no legal right to force me to cut down the trees. That finally seemed to deter them for a while. However, I made sure to regularly check the camera footage. One evening, I was scanning through and noticed some activity back by the trees around 2 a.m. I was horrified to see several shadowy figures fanning out along the row of oaks, chainsaws in hand. I immediately called the police to report trespassers destroying my property. The cops arrived in time before the destruction was complete. My hot-headed neighbors were caught red-handed, chainsaws still buzzing. The officers made them surrender their tools and arrested them on the spot. In the end, 3 of my beautiful oak trees had been partly chopped down and were damaged beyond saving. The sadness and anger I felt was overwhelming, but I was determined to make my spiteful neighbors pay. I sued them for the value of the mature trees, plus the emotional distress their actions caused me. The case was clear-cut with the video evidence I provided. The judge berated them harshly for their reckless vigilante stunt. They were ordered to pay me over $20,000 in damages and penalties. Sweet justice! I won't get those majestic oaks back, but at least I can replant new trees and make sure my neighbors never step foot on my property again. My story serves as a warning about combative neighbors who think they can bulldoze over your rights. Don't back down. With evidence, professional advice, legal action if needed, and sheer stubbornness, you can protect your property from those who want to ruin it for no good reason. The law and karma will ultimately give you the victory. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I live in this upper-class liberal town in Ohio called Bexley. Everyone in this town acts like complete self-righteous, narcissistic, entitled boneheads, and feels that their crap smells better than everyone else's. People buy their kids new luxury cars when they hit 16. My neighbor got a brand new BMW for passing her driving exam. It sounds absurd, but it's just how Bexley is. One other thing about Bexley is that people from Bexley drive like the road is their private racetrack. They blow through stop signs, turn left on red, and park wherever their car can fit. I am one of the few kids in Bexley who works a job to pay for his own college. Small rent to live at home. I'm 20 and 18 was the limit for my parents. Car insurance, and other expenses. I am grateful that my parents pay for my home food, heating and air conditioning, electricity, phone bill, etc. I get about 5 hours of sleep a night, So one day about a month ago, I decided to grab some sushi after the morning shift at work. This sushi place is right by a small private college within Bexley called Capital University. I pull into the lot to find one empty space and I pull in. I get out, go into the sushi joint, and spend maybe half an hour there. After a great lunch, I go back to see my car is blocked into the space by a huge gray GMC Yukon. I was blocked in the spot as the parking spaces have those concrete bumps in front to separate the spots. I took a picture of the license plate just for reference. Well, I just waited patiently for the car owner to show back up because maybe there were no spots to park in at the time, and my car just happened to be the one, as well as two other cars next to mine, of course. About 10 minutes later, a woman, maybe 35 years old, shows up and sees me in my car listening to music. She knocks on my window and tells me that I need to turn my music down and that us college kids are ruining her city. First of all, I go to Ohio State, not Capital. I look at her blankly, as my music isn't that loud and I'm wondering how she assumes I go to Capital. She yells in my face, "Wake up, you spoiled brat!" Now I had no clue who this crazy woman was, and I just turn my music off, shut the window, and continue waiting for the car owner to move their car. Well, the woman pulls keys out of her purse and hops into her gargantuan GMC Yukon and screeches away, spattering mud on my car, which I paid for and pay to clean. I was the brat? This woman has the audacity to seal 3 cars in and complain that my music is too loud? I was 15 minutes late back to work that day. I am never late. This was the first time I was late to work, and I hope it was the last. I swore that if I ever saw her again, I would do to her what she had done to me. Well, fast forward a month later to what is today. I decide to grab some sushi after taking an exam, and went to the same sushi place in the same parking lot to see the same gray GMC Yukon taking up both of the last 2 spots in the lot. I am on cloud 9 at this moment and park right next to the driver's side of her car, making sure I was in a spot and that she couldn't get into her car. There was about 5 inches between my passenger door and her driver's door. I leave my car, grab sushi to go, and patiently sit in my car. Well, what do you know, about 15 minutes later, the woman walks up to her double-parked car to see that I had sealed her in. I hear her yelling that she is going to sue the person who did this. She sees me listening to music in the car that is blocking her from leaving. She approaches my car and demands I move. I tell her, "You got into the spot, you can get out of the spot." She threatens to call the cops, and I just laugh. I know the laws, and even have a thin blue line flag bumper sticker on my car. She calls the cops, and within 1 minute, a cop shows up. I get out of my car, and the woman starts yelling at the cop about how I had sealed her in. I told the cop I was trying to park within the space. The cop looks at her car, then looks at mine, and looks so disappointed after. The officer says to the woman, "Be happy I didn't have your car towed." He also said that she needs to move her car within the next minute, or he'll ticket her for parking illegally. Angrily, the woman climbs in her passenger door and is struggling to reach the driver's side. She is throwing garbage out of her car in a fit, gets in, and moves her car over to drive. The cop knocks on her window and orders her to pick up her trash. She says to him, "Well, isn't that what garbage men do?" I'm trying so hard to keep a straight face, but I just start laughing my ass off because of her stupid remark. At this point, the woman looks at me and it seems she finally remembered who I was. Looking very pissed off, she sighs, gets out of her car, picks up her trash, and gets back into her car. The cop gets back into his car and tries to pull away, as the woman jerks her car out of the spot, nearly hitting the cop car, and speeds to the end of the lot, where she stops at the red light. The woman, forgetting that she isn't the queen of the world, and that speeding is illegal, immediately gets pulled over. This lot is about 40 feet wide, and the woman is about 20 feet from me, so I can hear her. She starts yelling to the cop, "Reckless driving?" And I know exactly what is going on. I get back in my car, turn the music back on, and start thanking heaven for giving me this satisfaction. I pull away from the lot to have the greatest sense of fulfillment I have ever had in my life. The next one is a petty revenge story. So this happened a few years ago, but will always remain one of my favorite memories. My older brother had joined the Marines and was stationed 2 hours away in a popular beach town for training. Being that my mom and I loved the beach, we traveled every so often to visit him on his weekends off. After a great visit with my brother, we decided to head home. This particular weekend, there was a huge classic car event in the town that brought in people from all over. The result was Sunday bumper-to-bumper traffic on the freeway. My mom and I had left early, but still not early enough to avoid the traffic. My mom likes to leave a bit of room between her and the car in front as an extra bit of stopping cushion. Not enough that a whole car could fit between, but enough. So we're sitting in traffic just talking about life when the car behind us lays on their horn. We look at each other wondering what that's about and turn to look at why the driver was honking. I stare straight into the eyes of the old Karen, graying hair and a short bob and everything. This lady is glaring a death glare at our car, honking at us to move forward. Seriously? When I say this traffic was bumper to bumper, I mean it. Any movement from my mom wouldn't have been more than an inch. Apparently, that inch we weren't moving was enough to trigger this Karen's road rage. Mom and I look at each other in shock, asking, "Where does she want us to go?" She mouths, "Idiot," at us, and we decide to get petty AF. Since the slow lane is also the lane cars merge onto, and this lady literally couldn't move around us, we began waving cars in front of us, purposefully slowing down to leave plenty of room for a car or two, or 10, to merge onto the freeway ahead of us. Every time a car thanks us and pulls ahead of us, we high-five each other in full view of Karen. We've got the music blasting, the windows down, and we are laughing and high-fiving each other left and right, waving much more grandly than needed, and smiling at each driver that's smiling back at us. We even made sure to look back at Karen and smile. She sat stewing in her car and calling us every name under the sun. Eventually, the lanes merged into one lane, and my mom and I took an exit towards home that had very few cars. Meanwhile, Karen's route took her on the same road that most of the other cars were heading down, which meant she still had to deal with bumper to bumper while we cruised on home. It was the most enjoyable traffic jam I've ever been in. The next one is a malicious compliance story. As the title says, I, F21, have never been happier. I'm in college right now. In my last term, we, a group of 6 people, had to do a project for the entire semester. Nobody ever replied to my texts, and they would always meet the day before the due date. I always asked them if we could meet on weekends, since I can't make it at the time they were suggesting due to classes. They did the project first. Then another guy made it by himself, and on the last one we were supposed to meet up. Since it was during exams, I could actually meet with them. However, again, nobody replied to my texts, and they kept changing the time we were supposed to meet until nighttime, when someone did it by themselves. The project obviously failed, and since that happened, we had to do a video explaining why all the projects failed or survived. I told one of my group mates, and here comes the part where I really regretted it, that I could write the explanation of why it failed. However, someone would need to record themselves talking, and another one add everything up. The videos, pictures, and the recording of all the projects. I really don't know what happened, but magically, the entire group understood that I would do everything. I argued that it was a huge amount of work and I would need help. However, after that, nobody ever replied to me except to remind me that I had to do everything and show what I did. I did my supposed part and sent them a huge text explaining why all the projects failed. I then asked them how it was, who would record themselves, and told them to send the missing videos and pictures of the previous projects. This was a week prior to uploading the entire video. Not only did they not reply, but they also didn't even open the group chat. They were mad enough, though, to then ask me how the video was doing and to make me send them the video of everything ASAP. The days went by, and seeing that nobody would reply to what I did or offer some help, I decided to do it by myself and give them what they deserved. I deleted the message from the text, recorded, and tried to do my best with what I had. Nobody even opened the group chat that week. Moving forward, it's Sunday morning and the due date is at 23:59. I gently send the video to the teacher and explain the entire situation to her. The teacher, whom I really respect for what she did, then replies, apologizing for the bad time this caused, and proceeds to tell me that they won't be evaluated with the video, only with the projects alone. It's Sunday 23:00. Suddenly the entire group appears asking where the heck the video is and complaining. I wait until 23:58 to tell them that the video was sent this morning and maybe next time they should at least read the damn group chat and then proceed to leave. I got texts complaining from this guy who literally did nothing. I then tell them in the nicest way possible that nobody here is mad and I'm sorry if you took it that way. I passed with honors. The next term came, and I'm only seeing one of my previous group mates with me in this class. It's a requirement for you to pass the previous subject before moving on to this one. The rest all failed, and I've never felt so satisfied. The next one is an entitled People Story. This happened some time ago, but I would love others' take on this. Some backstory is needed on this. I became friends with a girl named Nikki through a guy I was dating. That relationship fizzled out, but I remained friends with Nikki. When I became pregnant with my daughter, she knew my daughter's father and I were not together, and I did not want him aware of my daughter's birth because he was unpredictable. My mother sent her a photo, and she immediately posted it to my Facebook and basically blew up the plan of zero drama. I forgave her, and we decided to have dinner together to smooth things over. It should be noted that I should have known what kind of person I was dealing with because my daughter would go to anyone as a baby. If you smiled and put out your arms, she would come to you. Nikki was the sole exception to that. No matter how much she smiled and put out her arms, my daughter didn't want to go to her. That aside, dinner went okay until the discussion of my daughter's baptism came up. This is the moment that ended our friendship. Me, hey, so we scheduled the baby's baptism for January 17th. Please make sure you keep that day open. There will be a party after. Nikki, they are letting you baptize her? Me, yeah, why wouldn't they? Nikki, well, I assume since you and her father weren't together or married that they wouldn't want her. Me, it's not the child's fault that her parents weren't married when she was conceived. They would not hold that against her. Nikki, that's weird. I guess the Catholic Church will do anything for money these days. Me, you know what? Don't worry. You don't have to come. My child being the product of two sluts and us just paying her way into a religion you don't have to attend, wouldn't want you to be associated with our sins. Nikki, that's not what I meant. I'm just shocked they are letting a child born out of wedlock be baptized. I mean, you are going to stand up there with a whole bunch of couples and their babies and be by yourself. Aren't you embarrassed for you and for her? Me, not even a little bit. It was at this point I decided to pay the bill and get out of there before I wound up in jail. Being the petty person I am, I found out not long after that her husband and she decided to get divorced. I sent her a condolence card saying, "Guess we are both sinners now, LOL." Context on the father situation since some people were upset. Her father knew I was pregnant. About the same time I found out I was pregnant, he proposed to his other girlfriend whom I had no idea existed. I was told to get an abortion or give the baby away for adoption. He would pay for an abortion but not a baby. He then proceeded to stress me out every chance he got and sent my blood pressure to dangerous levels. I did not trust him not to do something to get rid of his mistake. I did not want the baby's picture posted because at times she would be in the nursery and not in my direct care. With the picture being posted to Facebook, she was in my room with me almost my entire stay at the hospital, and if she was in the nursery, someone from my family watched to make sure she was safe. He was made aware of her birth when I got home, and I was surrounded by people I trusted and who would protect my baby. I would love to give everyone a fairy tale ending and say once she was born this changed, but the only thing that changed was I am no longer afraid of him hurting her anymore. I accept that this may make people think I am an a-hole. I did what I thought was best for my daughter. The next one is an entitled Parent Story. Last night, when I went to sign in to open Netflix, I found that my TV had been signed out. I tried to sign back in but couldn't do it. It had been about a year since I last signed in, so I assumed I had forgotten my password and requested a reset. When I checked my email, I saw a message from Netflix this morning stating that my password had been successfully changed. This was obviously a red flag, so I went through all of our subscription services, updated passwords, and changed my email password just in case. About an hour ago, I received a call from my brother's ex-wife, let's call her Kate. They have been divorced for over 4 years now. She asked me why I changed my password. I hadn't realized that she still had my account information, which annoyed me a bit. So I explained that someone had changed the password without my consent. I told her I wasn't comfortable sharing my account information, especially with someone I haven't been in contact with. Going back a bit, my in-laws are staying at our home. At night, after everyone goes to bed, there are usually 4 devices in our home using our Netflix account simultaneously. During the call, Kate explained that she had tried to access our account on Christmas night but received a message saying there were too many users on the account. She got the idea that it would be fine with me if she logged into our Netflix account and changed the password so that she and her new husband could watch their show. She said this calmly, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. I nearly lost my temper. I couldn't fathom how anyone would think it's acceptable to change someone else's password just because you don't want to pay for it yourself. I firmly told her that I didn't want to hear from her anymore and that I wouldn't be sharing our account information. Then I hung up. About 15 minutes ago, she called my wife and asked for the Disney Plus password. I had used the same account information for each streaming service, and apparently she had figured it out and logged into several of our services. When I realized who my wife was talking to and what they were discussing, I signaled for the phone. Kate was complaining that she needed access to Disney Plus, so that her 18-month-old son could watch Bluey and get ready for bed. I told her to leave us alone and hung up. What a great way to ruin my mood for the night. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.